Welcome to the Hank Cisco show. Today we have two guests. One you've met before, baritone, and a special guest when I get to know our guest here today. He first he's been around Norristown for quite a while, but I got to know him, and he became editor at the Times Herald here, and. We have lunch every once in a while, check the town out, and everybody. You meet the reporters, you meet the photographer of a newspaper. You very seldom meet the editor. So we're going to get into meeting the editor and what an editor's job is and what they do, what the responsibility. They don't stand behind a desk. He's a kind of guy that wants to get out into the community, get to know the community. So I think that's, the old story, if you want to swim, you got to get in the water. And our guests here, Stan Huskey, who is the editor, and also Cameron Chandler, baritone. So first I want to talk to you, Stan, and just, tell us about now. You're from around here, right? Tell me something about it. People want to get to know you, okay?
Well, originally I'm from Tennessee, but I've been around here since 1994. I started out with a newspaper down in Chester County. Came to Norristown Times Herald in '95 when I started there as a regular beat reporter. I was covered crime for Norristown for a few years, and then was promoted to city editor in 2000. After that, I moved over to the Phoenix and Phoenixville as editor. And I came back to Norristown in July of last year and took over
as the editor.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I remember I was a former police officer with Norristown Police Department, so I was in the department when you were doing but I understand, I talked to a lot of policemen, and they said that you were you're the kind of guy that wants to get right in there and get the story as a police reporter, and I think that's important today, that to get in there and get the story. I know the newspaper's been a very important part of my family growing up here in Norristown. I know my mother, she would always get the Italian newspaper and read it, and she would read it in Italian, and then she'd explain it to me a little bit, and I could understand a little Italian,
Right.
But the newspaper, the Herald was always a very important part of our life growing up with our family. In fact, my daughters, for a Christmas present, I get them a prescription, some subscription of the Times Herald as
Excellent.
a Christmas
That's
present.
good. That's
So
good.
I want them to keep informed. The old story, if you want, an informed nation's a peaceful nation. You want to know what's going on, I think you should keep abreast with it. And so what's an editor do? What you say he's the editor? What do you do?
Well, I talk to a lot of people. That's a big part of my job, is to just talk to my editors on staff to see what's going on during the day, talk to reporters, talk to photographers. Like you said, I like to get out in the community. I believe that's important to the newspaper, to let people know what's going on behind the scenes at the Times Herald. We are involved with the community, and we have been for a while. We've been around 203 years, so we've been a big part of the community for a long time, and we want to see that continue, and that's a big part of what I'm trying to do, is bring the newspaper back to the community.
And when you mentioned something about put your 2 cents in, okay?
Right, that's a new feature we just started.
In other words, if I want to get involved, that's an old phrase. I'm going to put my 2 cents in.
Right.
In other words,
Right.
get involved. And you know what? I'm glad you named that, because I always carry 2 pennies with me all the time. It reminds me to put my 2 cents in. In other words, if I see something, an accident or something, I stop. I want to get involved. So I think that's a great heading. And what should people, what kind of information should they give? Is it
Well, how it evolved was we started talking about different ways to get the community involved in the newspaper. And sitting down to write a letter to the editor is often a little more than people want to do. But we thought if there was an easy, quick way for people to just pick up a telephone, if you're sitting down at your coffee table or at your breakfast table in the morning and you're having your coffee and you see something in the newspaper that bothers you, or you just want to make a quick telephone call and say, you know what, here's what I think. So we developed a dedicated line just for it. It's 610-272-3522. You don't have to speak to anybody. You talk to a machine. The machine just comes on and says, thanks for calling your 2 cents. And you just quickly tell them what you're thinking. And then we take and copy them all down, and we get them in the newspaper. It runs every Sunday on the new commentary page that we just started as well.
I didn't know that. Now that, in other words, I can call that number. What's that number again?
610-272-3522.
And then a recording, and then I can say what I want to say. If it's a complaint or something, I think maybe there's a pothole or there's a tree falling and the street light's not on or something.
It doesn't matter what the topic is.
In other words, the newspaper is actually a liaison between the community, right?
Absolutely. We're the voice of the community. That's what we're supposed to be there for.
Right.
Hopefully everybody will try to keep it clean. Just give us your 2 cents. And we will also require that you leave your name and your the township in which you live and your telephone number.
Good.
We will never publish a telephone number. We want to make that clear to everybody. We don't publish the telephone numbers. Good. It's simply to call people back if we have a question.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great, because you look, a lot of people don't like to sit down and write. I know I'm not great. I can talk and I use my hands and pop, pop, pop. But as far as sitting down and write, I was never good in school on that. But as far as talking, that's great that I can call up and express myself.
Well, that was the idea behind it, and it's quick.
That's
and
great.
You throw in your 2 cents when you're thinking about it too.
And it's going to be. I want you to meet. This is the first time you met Chandler here. He's my man. I think he's great. He's helped us out a couple of times. I called him up and he sang a couple of patriotic songs at the Columbus Monument on Columbus Day. And he's from Norristown, from Ambler over to Norristown. And we're happy to have you here. And
well, I think it's always a pleasure coming back and sharing some of these songs that I've loved for many years. So it's always a pleasure.
And so how about sing a song and let me hear it.
Well, I brought a nice tune Mr. Sinatra made popular as well as Tony Bennett. This is called Fly Me to the Moon.
You want to just, while they're fixing that tape?
Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, oh, hold my hand, yes. In other words, baby, kiss me. Fill my heart with song and let me sing forevermore. Oh, you are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, now please be true. In other words, I love you. Come on and fly me. Oh, let me play among the stars. I want to see what spring is like and adore. In other words, now please be true. In other words, I love you. Thank you.
Great. All right. You know, we have a lot of talent in Norristown, okay? And I'm just wondering, one of these days, we'd have a talent show, and maybe the Times Herald could be a sponsor. What do they have at that big show they have on TV? Or
Yeah, like Star Search or talent. You know, there is a great deal of talent here in Norristown. I sing out of the Rittenhouse Center for the Performing Arts. We've had a wonderful collaboration with the Times Herald with their publicity over the years. We did some work over at the Cultural Center. We've done some work recently in October at Stewart. And we got a nice write-up in the Times Herald. And I think that was one of the reasons we had a good turnout at the production. That was a tribute to George Gershwin music. Mm-hmm. And you know, that really went a good way with informing the public about some of the arts that are going on here. There's a great deal of talent, athletic talent, and the arts. And you know, I've been here going on 8 years plus now. And being raised in Ambler, I always knew Norristown was a larger town and venue, and they had a lot of opportunities. And as a younger person, I used to always come over here. But yeah, there's a great deal that Norristown has to offer to this area.
Yeah, well, I think, just like you mentioned, you know, a couple good articles in the Times Herald, and I know people have asked me, you know, how can I get in touch with it? You know, well, you can get in touch with me, and I'll get in touch with you. Yeah. But we have, maybe we can flash your phone number, or how I can get in contact with you.
Absolutely.
On our screen. We want, you know, in fact, Mike Grant, the heavyweight contender, fought down the Spectrum, and Times Herald put a big spread on you. As a result of that, now, yeah. People were calling up, wanting tickets, wanting to go, you know. And so now I said to the promoter that I have a guy in Norristown that can sing the Star Spangled Banner, see? Now, I understand on June the 20th, there's going to be a fight down there, and I think I'm going to try to get you to sing the Star Spangled Banner. So thank you, the Times Herald, for what you do for the community. You know, your sports department. Tell us something about the sports department. They have great coverage, you know.
We do have a fantastic sports department. Tim Fondy is our sports editor. He does a terrific job. We try to get as much coverage to the local schools as possible. I know a lot of people will say, well, you should have covered this, you should have covered that, but we cover a lot of school districts, and we want to try to spread out the coverage as much as possible. We obviously are a little partial to Norristown, so we give them a little extra coverage, but we have a lot of school districts that deserve the coverage as well, and I think our guys do a terrific job.
But they tell me that most newspaper editors are hard-nosed, tough, have to answer tough questions, and I guess so, because, you know, people call up and start hollering and screaming, I don't like this, and they blame the editor. So, you know, can you fight? I mean, you have to defend yourself. Somebody comes running in your office, wants to beat you up or something. I'll give you a couple pointers, you know.
Well, you could. So. Well, maybe I could take a couple of pointers. Yeah,
most people handle that. But.
Well, you know, it's most people do call when they're upset about things. Very few people call to say, "Oh, you're doing a terrific job." But lately, we have been getting a lot of those calls as well, so that's always nice. You know, that's part of what I do is make sure that I'm there for the community as well, to answer questions about why we did things a certain way and why we didn't do things a certain way. But it's not. Most people are reasonable, so once you talk to them, they understand why you did something.
And I know when I was with the police department, we found sometimes some policemen would get all upset that they would give a whole story, and then the whole story wasn't put in the paper, and the guy said, "Oh my God," you know. But then until I got to know the editor, and in fact they had a course seminar on get down to the newspaper, police officers, get down and meet the newspaper guy, find out what their problems are. Sometimes they don't have enough room, and that story is cut. So
Right.
it's not because they don't like you, it's something that they have so much space, and that's what they have to use. So that was one of the things that the seminar for policemen is get to know your newspaperman rather than just saying, well, they're not doing this newspaper. Don't knock it, you know. Don't I use the old term, don't pollute the water you have to drink, you know. And you're just saying, it's no good. Find out first. Get down and find out what their problems are. And that maybe you can solve your own problems.
Well, I write a column every week.
Oh, yeah.
And at the bottom of the column, I always put my telephone number and my email address, so I encourage people to get in touch with me. I want people to, if they have a question or concern, to absolutely give me a call, drop me an email, and let me know. And again, if it's something general, you can throw in your 2 cents.
Yeah, that's great. I was thinking having a corner. I had mentioned when you asked different people what you should call that. I thought neutral corner, being a former boxer,
Yeah.
I'd say in a neutral corner, but you're not in a neutral corner if you got a complaint. You're up here howling and screaming.
Right.
See? But I think that's a good column, and I didn't know that you could call up and record your complaint. See.
Well, yeah, that's why I wanted to bring that up, is to let
Yeah.
people know that you don't have to speak with somebody. It's quick, it's easy, and you don't have to worry about being put on hold or,
Right.
talking to several different people at once just to get your 2 cents in.
Right.
It's,
But the fact that I still live in Norristown and I'm involved quite a bit and get, you know, and you hear some people say, oh, I used to get the Times Herald. The only time I get it now to find out who's dead. You know, well, you know, there's more to life than reading who's dead. You know, I think that it's important to keep up with, like my mother, she would read the Italian paper and then she'd interpret to me, you know, and it was such an important part of our life. I don't know.
You're going to find news in the Times Herald that you won't find anywhere else. We cover most all of the local municipalities. So when you want news about the Norristown Area School District, Norristown Borough, East or West Norton, Upper Marion, Bridgeport, we're the newspaper that covers those municipalities like nobody else. You'll see a little bit of coverage from other newspapers, a little bit of coverage every now and then it'll be on television if it's something huge, but we're there every day. And we're covering the borough meetings, the planning commission meetings, and letting people know what's going on in their community. And it's very important because locally that's where all your money's going.
That's right. That's right. And what do you think of Norristown?
You know, I like Norristown. The people are wonderful. You have a variety of people. I do a lot of sacred singing in Norristown. Time to time, I enjoy the camaraderie in the pubs and just the neighborhood friendships. You know, they're like one fella I met when I was doing a program over at the Cultural Center, Forrest Jones. Now, he's the founder of Rittenhouse Center for the Performing Arts. And, you know, it's just the caliber of the people like yourself and like Stan that I get to meet, and Jim the other week, I met him. You know, there is a wonderful pool of talent and resources here to draw from, if you will, and get in the mix and, you know, do whatever you can do to maybe enhance somebody's life, you know, with information, like you said. I've always, you know, been an avid newspaper reader. And I'm glad you mentioned that telephone number, and you know, I've always wanted to voice some of my opinions, you know, like the state of the nation or community, or maybe what I'm involved in. I love music and the arts, and you know, I think because I know media is a powerful outlet. You know, it's something that I can do. I like writing. You know, I've written a couple of songs. It's not something I want to get into because it's like laying brick. And, you know, even those people who do that for a living, you know, my heart goes out to them. It doesn't come easily for me. But, you know, when I stick to it, I can do it. But, yeah, Norristown, it's a wonderful town. You know, and like any big city, you know, you have your pros and cons. But I like being here, and I like the opportunities as a musician that Norristown has to offer. I've been singing over at United Church of Christ for about 8 years.
That's on Marshall and Noble Street, right?
That's right. And so it was a hub because I worked over in Great Valley. I also worked for my brother in Conshohocken. And I was singing here in Norristown, so I said, well, you know, why not just move here and save myself 15, 20 minutes commuting? And so that's when I came, and, you know, it was a good move.
You know, talking about the Times Herald, I have to say, when I was a kid, I mean, that was quite a while ago, the newspaper, the Times Herald, was 3 cents, okay? And I never sold newspapers because they had certain kids on the route, okay? But I did sell newspapers, the Record, the Philadelphia Record, and the Philadelphia Inquirer. And then the only time I sold them, they're suburban.
Other newspapers?
They're
Okay.
suburban.
Never heard of those.
Yeah, they're 4 points off the Chinese Navy. But actually, I sold newspapers when Bruno Hoffman was found guilty on the kidnapping of Lindberghs.
Right.
Okay, and then when he was electrocuted, they had an extra, and they down at the Lafayette Street, the train would come in and get them, and I carried the papers, you know, all the way up. And by the time I got to City Hall at Erie and DeKalb Street, I was sold out. I'd holler, extra, extra, you know, 3 cents, you know. But then the Times Herald never, I didn't think the only time the Times Herald ever come out with an extra, I think, is during the war, I think, when the war was over, I think. But I don't think they ever come out with an extra that I know of.
Actually, we just did. For September 11th, there was an extra that day.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's, okay, right. And that was like a rarity. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
Yeah, you know.
It's obviously going to be a big event to run an extra press run.
Right.
But it's something that you said that about the 3 cents for the Times Herald. There's not many things you can think of that haven't risen that much in price over the years. Because I know that must have been a while ago when you were delivering papers.
Well, the American store is now the A&P, or what was the A&P, the American store. A loaf of bread was 5 cents, okay? And the sliced bread was 7 cents, you know? So things were a little different, you know? In fact, a lady called me. She's with the Montgomery County, I guess Montgomery County Historical Society on DeKalb Street, and they said that they had the 1930 census of Norristown, and she picked the street in Norristown, Chestnut Street, and she's looking to talk to somebody who lives on Chestnut Street in 1930, and she bumped into me. I lived on Chestnut Street, and so she looked through the newspapers and the Times Herald, and finally, the one block between DeKalb and Swede Street, there was 5 policemen lived there, the warden of the prison, the fire chief, you know, and in one block, and there was only like walking distance. But so she asked me if I would reminisce about 1930. In 1930, I was 6 years of age, see, and talked about what kind of games we played in 1930. Right. And we all resort back to the Times Herald to look up something, you know what I mean? So it's something to keep abreast with, you know, with today. In this day and age, I think it's very important to keep abreast with the newspaper. How about another little song here?
All right.
To loosen it up a little bit.
Well, this number is, it's called Concentrate on You. Whenever skies look gray to me, trouble begins to brew. Whenever the winter wind
become too strong, I concentrate on you. When fortune cries nay, nay to me, and people declare you're through, whenever the blues become my only song, I concentrate on your smile so sweet, so tender, when at first my kiss you do decline, on the light in your eyes when you surrender, and once again our arms intertwine. And so when wise men say to me that love's a young dream never comes true, to prove that even wise men can be wrong, I concentrate on I concentrate on baby. I concentrate on
Thank you.
All right. All right. You know, if maybe, why can't you be a combination singer and boxer? I mean, I could use a heavyweight. I mean, I'm looking for a heavyweight,
Price is
Anybody
right.
out there in the audience that wants to be a boxer, I'll be your manager. A lot of money out there. All right, now, one thing we didn't cover about the newspaper, we're here to talk about the newspaper because you're the editor, and I want to know about it as much. You have a Sunday edition. Now, I remember there was never a Sunday edition at Times Herald years ago.
Right.
It was just like 6 days a week. And now you have like a Sunday. That's a big thing, isn't it?
Well,
That's a big job to put that out on a Sunday.
It's a much larger newspaper than our daily newspaper. We've added for the economic conscious, we just doubled the amount of coupons that we put in the paper.
Yeah.
That's a big deal for a lot of people. You take 2 or 3 of those coupons, you take them to the store, and you just paid for your subscription.
And sandwiches too. The coupons for
Oh
sandwiches.
yeah. It's loaded with a lot of
Buy
a
one
lot of
and get
value.
one free.
That's
Buy
right.
one, get one free. What we've tried to do on the news side, though, is add what we call our Sunday package, and we're attempting to go a little more in depth in things that may have happened during the week. Give our readers a little more in-depth coverage of local or even national issues. We just last Sunday's package was about loose cigarettes that are being sold in
Yeah,
stores.
I saw that article.
It's an attempt by us to go a little bit deeper and let people know when they pick up their Sunday paper, they're going to get a little more value.
Well, as an editor, you're a pretty young guy to be a top guy like that.
Well, I
You
appreciate
look
that.
young. I don't know how old you are, but I don't know if that's a secret or anything, but
Well, no, it's not a secret.
Okay.
I'm 44 years old.
44, well, that's
You look younger.
about that.
Well, I appreciate that.
44,
Thank
what
you.
am I?
You look like you're about 20 yourself.
All right, thank you, sir.
44. I'm 79. Woo. But I love it. Now, we got young school students behind the camera, okay, and they're taken up to be, on TV. Now, what kind of info or advice can you give a student that's in school today that maybe wants to become a reporter or a journalist or something? What kind of?
Well, there are a lot of avenues. Norristown High School has an excellent student newspaper, and that allows the students here to get involved. We also have started a new page at the paper called The Student Voice, and we're having high school students from all around the county contribute to it. It kind of gets them their start, kind of gets them a feel of the newspaper business. It's not just magazine style writing. It is news writing. We are asking them to go into issues and try to actually report a story the way it's supposed to be reported. English is obviously, you want to be your major. Journalism, you're going into journalism school. These guys behind the camera are into broadcast journalism, so it's a little different from them besides the news journalism. But there are a lot of opportunities out there.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's important. You know, I want to thank my guests. Now, you know, you sang a couple songs here, loosen me up a little bit there, and I'm going to, you know, anytime you sing at weddings and whatever.
Absolutely,
okay?
absolutely.
Bar mitzvahs, is that how you say it?
Bat mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, yeah. You know, funerals, weddings, you name it.
Right.
Whatever the client wants, that's what I do.
Right. So I want to thank you for, you know, enlightening me and the people, you know, in reference to the Times Herald. I mean, it's something that we should have in every house should have one. Don't leave home without it. Is that the slogan they use?
Thank you for having me.
So I want to thank you very much, and
Thanks, Cisco.
I just hope that people get more involved with the community and to be able to touch base with the newspaper, at least, you know, make a contact with the editor, call up.
Absolutely.
You don't have to write letters. If you can't write, pick up the phone and record something. Okay, so I want to thank everyone, and we'll see you next month. I'll have one on the 12th and the 26th, and we'll have someone I want you to meet that in the community you know, we're looking out to see the Norristown area, to get to know people, and we have a lot of talent, we have a lot of class. So thank you very much, everybody.